Good morning. So I am extremely excited about the gentleman who's going to be joining me here in just a couple minutes. I've been posting. We were going to do this at noon Eastern time, but he had a conflict and something extremely important that he needed to do at noon. So we had to do a quick shift in schedule. And his name is Calley Means. You may have heard of him. He talks a lot about metabolic health, and I am just so impressed with the work that he's doing. So I'm going to, let's see, get him to come on here in just a second. And you're going to absolutely love the work that he's doing and what he
Hey,
has to
how's it
say.
going?
Hi, Callie.
Amazing.
Good. How
Thanks so much for having
are
me.
you? Thank you. I'm so thrilled to have you here, and I really appreciate it because I know how busy you are, and I know you've been super bombarded with requests to be on podcasts and different things
We're
for
trying to
good
get the message
reason.
out and really
What?
just so thrilled to be joining you,
Yeah.
Sonia. Yeah.
Thank you. And it's resonating. The message that you're getting out is resonating with people, and people need to hear it. So if you don't mind, if you could share with our viewers who are on here and who've been excited to see you, if you could share a little bit about your background, because it's
Yes.
very
So I've been
interesting.
hugely influenced on this, metabolic health vision. This is such an important issue that you and so many others talk about by, people that have been in the space, doctors, nutritionists. I come from an atypical background. So I used to be a political consultant, and interestingly, that I think that's an interesting perspective to add to this debate because, unfortunately, as many of us suspect, the system is very rigged, and I saw that early in my career. I worked for big soda and pharma, and I've been talking about, now I'm devoting my life to trying to change those incentives, but it really brings me back early in my career. I was very, I think I was in it for the right reasons. I was ideological in politics, working on campaigns, but inevitably you become a consultant after the campaigns. And one case that resonated was working with soda companies, and expressly the express goal is keeping soda and food stamps, which is a program 15% of Americans rely on for nutrition. And amazingly, 10% of all of that funding, all of that spending goes to soda. And it just makes no sense that we're spending, $10 billion a year from a government nutrition program on diabetes water. And I actually watched as Coke, paid civil rights groups, paid think tanks, paid even academic institutions to argue that it was right to keep soda on food stamp spending. And we kind of suspect
Oh
this,
my God.
but even today, the leading NIH nutrition research says that Lucky Charms are, more highly encouraged than eggs, and the most, healthy dairy drink you can drink is chocolate almond milk, and orange juice is highly encouraged. Things like on down. So you really do have food companies systematically, paying researchers, paying other groups to rig the system. And to me, it's a message of empowerment because I think really embracing that and understanding that allows us to ask questions and not take everything at face value.
Yeah. I love that. Like I said at the beginning, I love that you're getting this message out there because I didn't even, I mean, I suspected there are lots of conflicts of interest, but I didn't know the degree to which it is. And you were there on the inside back then, like seeing
Yeah,
what
I
was
mean,
happening.
well, let's just take research institutions. So processed food spends 11 times more on foundational nutritional research in the United States than the NIH, which is a stat that just shocked me. And you go to doctors and medical school. My sister, Dr. Calley Means, who started this company, Levels Health, which helps people manage their metabolic health, has had a huge impact on me. But she talked about her experience at Stanford Med School, where she did not take a single nutrition class. So 80% of medical schools today graduate doctors without taking one nutrition class. Um, so you trace the money there, and a ton of medical school funding comes from pharmaceutical companies. It's more than 50% of all the funding somehow touches pharmaceuticals, and not a big lobby for children who are now getting diabetes. That they're not funding the medical schools. So you literally have doctors not even learning, even doctors that specialize in diabetes, can graduate without taking a single nutrition class. That it's all about pharmacology, all about intervention. So, um, it's not. There's really good people in these industries, but when you follow the money, we really have a system where
Hmm.
our food is obviously making us very unhealthy. Chronic diseases, autoimmune conditions, allergies, as you talk about,
Yeah.
going off the charts. But the medical system, we would kind of expect to be, asking why people are getting sick. The doctors don't learn why people are getting sick. They learn about pharmacology. They learn how to put band-aids on it, and that's all just based on financial incentives.
That's what's so sad, that it's based on financial incentives instead of really helping people get true health. And we know that food is medicine. Food can be medicine. I mean, I've got clients that they were on many diabetes meds daily, metformin, insulin, multiple things. And by changing their diet and lifestyle in less than a month, got off all the meds. A1C is normal now. On the meds, it was much higher. The meds that are making them sick eventually, because my mom was a type 2 diabetic, and I saw the cascade effect that happened from having that disease. And when I told you earlier, Casey, Callie, sorry, when my mom moved in with us, she lived with us the last few years of her life. I was able to help her with her nutrition. She got off almost every single med that she was on, but it was kind of too late at that point because so much damage had already been done from the diabetes
Yeah,
and the
well, I
side
think this
effects of
is
the
one of
meds.
the things my sister Casey and I are really really trying to change is that we've really gone on a disastrous and I think wrong experiment seeing diseases in silos. Going back to my experience, we actually I saw as the American Diabetes Association was paid by special interests. Up until just a couple of years ago, the American Diabetes Association was funded millions of dollars by Coke. Coca-Cola was a logo on the website, and hugely funded by
Gosh.
pharmaceutical, even food companies. They were endorsing small cans of Coke, the American Diabetes Association, and up until 2018, and this just speaks to how we see everything in a silo. Up until 2018, the American Diabetes Association guided doctors. They said if a patient is taking their insulin, is taking their medication, a person with type 2 diabetes can eat whatever they want. They don't need to change their diet. And I think that speaks to how we see everything in this silo that, oh, you can treat with the insulin. Oh, you can treat with the statins. Oh, you can treat with it. Now we have an obesity drug.
Mhm.
The problem is that if people are continuing to put bad food in their system, if they're continuing to eat inflammatory oils, if they're continuing to load their cells with glucose, if they're continuing to eat the processed grains, which convert to sugar, disrupt the microbiome in various ways, that's going to result in other
Mhm.
issues. And it was, interesting talking about our moms. It's like, the foundation of diet. My mom had, suffered from prediabetes, eventually diabetes. That's the baseline that leads to other issues. 99% of people with diabetes have other comorbidities. Cancer itself, there's increasing research showing it feeds
Yeah.
off of glucose. The cells are that puts it in a hyperdrive, and we're eating 100 times more sugar than we did 100 years ago. Cancer's going up, so it's just like we've got to see the root cause. And I think a lot of what's happening is that in the past 50 years we've siloed everything into something that's treatable, and now of course diabetes, we have this miracle injection.
Yeah.
It's like if a kid is taking a weekly injection, that maybe even makes them eat less, which I'm dubious whether that's going to even happen long term. There's a lot of side effects. If they're still eating bad food, they're gonna get sick in other ways. So I just think that's a core thing that our system doesn't understand, and
Exactly.
it's more profitable to segment diseases, but it's just not how disease works.
Yeah, I guess it's not profitable for people to just eat lots and lots of fruits and vegetables and healthy whole foods and organic food. And we were talking about this, how you had mentioned something about 100 years ago. We didn't have added sugar, seed oils, there's extracted oils, processed, highly processed grains and natural flavors. And 100 years ago, pretty much all food was organic and it was
Yeah,
real whole food.
and I think this has been a big journey for me because back when I was working for food and pharma companies, it's like, oh, American food systems, American healthcare innovations led to amazing things. There might be some problems, but we really need to let's trust the innovation of our system. You really unpeel the onion, and it's a different story. First, this idea of life expectancy. Oh, life expectancy has doubled. It has doubled in the last 120 years. But almost all of those advances, if you really peel it back, have been from acute solves for acute conditions, things that would kill you like right away. Antibiotics. You take that for a week. That before that you would die of that infection. Emergency surgical procedures. Childbirth 120 years ago was one of the most deadly things a person could do. Several percent of women actually died during childbirth, and it was crazy. So 100% like surgical, emergency procedures for childbirth, for things like an appendicitis, emergency surgical procedures, vaccines. There's many things that were created actually before 1960, right, that have led to this dramatic increase in life expectancy. But we've really lost our way when it comes to chronic conditions. Really, I would argue any examination of the past 50 years of medicine, where now 90+% of dollars are spent on chronic management, has been a disaster. I mean, all of the chronic conditions we're spending more money on are going up. Coming from tech, usually, innovation means you spend less and you get better outcomes. Now we're spending more and getting worse outcomes. And then on our food system, I do not think it's been progress in our food system. Food-based illnesses, have become the 8 of the 10 leading causes of American death. And as you said, we have these frankenfoods where the foundation of our diet, 70%, we hear the stat a lot, 70% of our diet is processed food. What is that? You look on it's processed grains, it's processed flours, it's added sugar, and it's seed oils. I mean, it's staggering, right? You just look canola oil, soybean oil, it's in everything. And that is new in the past 100 years. That's a totally processed food that's very inflammatory. So, I mean, to me, being in this world, I also roundly and fully believe that our whole debates around diet is part of the distraction too. Working for the food companies, we literally had a strategy to fund as many food studies as possible. The fact that there were more food studies was the point. And, you have these nutrition schools now, putting out thousands and thousands of conflicting nutrition studies. I think there's some good nutrition researchers working at those schools, but that is literally the purpose. Like, that is why food companies are funding these, because if we're confused, if there's a new study coming out every day that says, oh, there's this marginal thing, sugar actually doesn't cause obesity, these ridiculous studies, it seeds doubt. It's exactly what the cigarette companies did for many decades. So that seems to be what's happening. And, I think we just need to get more simple. I mean, we need to understand diseases are connected. We need to understand that in the medical field, a doctor should not be going into one of 42 specialties, dividing the body into 42 different parts, and then 82 subspecialties. We need to have, awe for the connections of disease. And then we need to make nutrition, I think, less complicated in a way. We need to stop looking at these thousands of studies, but understand we're being gaslit. I mean, it really goes to the basics, to whole foods, to sleep, to movement, to stress management. And that should be the basis of healthcare.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, this is so good, Casey.
No,
I'm so sorry.
Casey's
Casey.
Yes.
Calley.
Well, Casey's had a big
impact. I don't know
what's
going on in my brain.
I'll take that as a compliment. Yeah.
Okay, with Calley, that's and you have a very unique name too. But people are writing here in the chat. The comments are like, they're begging me to save this. Please save this live. Somebody just wrote, I'm sharing this video with my entire family. You're getting the word out to so many people, and I appreciate you coming on here. I don't have the most giant following, but I'm telling you the right people are seeing this.
I'm a big fan.
And the more we get this out.
And I'm so grateful for people listening.
Yeah, same. And I mean, somebody just wrote Casey and Calley are smart, but it runs in the family. But, the thing you said about lifespan, I was telling you about Dave Sandoval, who's the co-founder and co-owner of the company that I'm with. He says the same exact thing. And the first time I heard it was from him about lifespan, how lifespan has gotten longer. And he said, I remember him talking about childbirth, mortality at childbirth, and all those things that happened 100, 125 years ago that don't happen now. And that's what shortened the average lifespan back then. So the numbers are so skewed. It's like you can spin numbers any way you want, I guess. You can spin statistics. And then the other thing you mentioned about children with diabetes and that shot that you mentioned, which I think I know what you're talking about. You said 60 Minutes did a piece on it recently, and you're talking about the Ozempic, the
That's
off-label
right.
use of Ozempic,
Now,
right?
now, soon for label use. Now
Yeah.
that the American Academy of Pediatrics has said that obese and overweight teenagers should use it, which is over 40% of teenagers now are obese or overweight.
Oh my gosh. Well, so some things about that just drive me crazy is, again, it's not encouraging people to eat real food and have a healthy lifestyle. I know someone in the medical field who is, along with so many other people, promoting this, and told me, this person told me themselves, oh, I just tell my patients, eat
Right.
whatever you want, eat the Oreos, eat the pizza, eat whatever you want. You're just going to eat less of it when you're doing this because it's going to suppress your appetite. And then even touting the aspect of it that it slows down gastric emptying as a
Hmm.
good
Right.
thing. Oh, you'll feel full longer. Well, that's so unhealthy. To people are getting constipated on it, and all these foods that they're eating contain, most likely, they're laden not only with all the other chemicals and artificial colors, but with glyphosate, the toxic chemical in Roundup. So encouraging people to still eat those foods, and this magic shot that is this big trend right now, it doesn't help anybody, to really embrace true health and really get into the lifestyle of taking care of their
Yeah, so I
bodies.
think every parent, really every person should be really caring about the fact that Ozempic is being approved now widely for obesity and for obese patients as young as 12. Again, this has skyrocketed, during COVID, but 40% plus of teenagers are either meet the overweight or obese, and they're actually recommending this drug, this weekly injection for life for overweight as well, if interventions haven't worked, which is like for everyone. So let's unpack this a little bit. So let's
Mm-hmm.
just first just take the drug itself. I think it's very instructive for a lot of chronic disease miracle cures. So you mentioned the gastrointestinal issues, and this just represents a complete and utter lack of understanding of the connections of the body. So gastrointestinal. So 95% of our serotonin, 95% of the molecule that regulates contentment, that literally like regulates our whole like mood, is produced not in the brain but in the gut. So when you have
Yeah.
gastrointestinal issues like IBS, for instance, it's highly correlated with an increase in depression. So IBS is said to be the condition that got anyone that's actually had some gastrointestinal issues, you could probably trace it back. You probably were in a slightly worse mood, actually just mentally. And and what we're seeing with
Mm-hmm.
Ozempic already is it completely unsurprisingly it's correlated with an increase in depression, because when you we don't even know why it's causing severe gastrointestinal issues. It's causing more than 50% of patients who take it experience severe gastrointestinal issues. This is going to lead to an increase in teen depression and potentially suicide. And that's not a
Ugh.
radical statement. It's like if our gastrointestinal, if our gut is totally out of whack, which means our microbiome, that is going to inevitably correlate it with increased depression.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one small thing. Okay, but let's just step back and assume the drug has limited side effects, works perfectly. Exactly as you said, if a child is doing less but pummeling, inflammatory food into their bodies, that results in cellular dysfunction.
Yeah.
Seeing every disease as an isolated instance, in many ways, I think we should all see obesity as a good symptom, in a way, because it's visible. You can see it. 15% of
Mm-hmm.
children right now have fatty
Yeah.
liver disease. So 15%, according to the CDC, of children, that is metabolic dysfunction. That's cellular dysfunction. Instead of presenting itself visually, where the fat, where the excess glucose stays in the cell and turns into fat, sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes that cellular dysfunction happens in organs we can't see, like the liver, and that results in fatty liver disease. Which there's many thin children who look perfectly healthy who now have fatty liver disease.
Mm-hmm.
So what the obesity, it's not in and of itself the problem. The obesity is a warning sign. It's a sign that child is going to have later on an increased risk of depression. It's a sign that they're going to have increased risk of fatty liver disease. It's a sign they're almost certainly going to have some fertility issues, which we're seeing rampantly and are highly tied to metabolic dysfunction. It's a sign. If you're obese or extremely obese, I think it's more than a 10-year life expectancy decline if you're extremely obese, and that's just because there's a warning sign. It's a symptom of larger issues. You're almost certainly going to be more depressed. You're almost certainly going to suffer more along your life, and you're going to have a shorter life. And Ozempic isn't going to change that, because if you still eat bad food for your cells, you're going to just get other issues. That's what's happening time and time again, and that's what's happening with statins. We prescribe more statins, heart disease goes up. It's happening with metformin. Metformin's now one of the most prescribed drugs. Diabetes is not going down. SSRIs, 25% of the country are now on an SSRI or mental health medication of some kind. And I think they are helpful for some populations. I'm not blanket anti-drug, but that's a big societal development. And depression and suicide is not going down. So like when we try to whack-a-mole the symptoms, we get overall just more and more disease. And again, like this is by design. I think being back, back to my, early career we were talking about, I think the genius of this system is that individually everyone can kind of go to sleep at night. The pharma makers are making life-saving drugs. The doctors are helping people who are obese. The food folks are making food. But taken together, nobody's really asking what's going on at a macro level. Nobody's really asking why everyone's being poisoned by a food and why everyone's profiting from individual silos, not asking larger questions. You would expect that to be our healthcare academic institutions or bureaucracies. That's just not happening. They're not asking why people get sick. Every institution in health is profiting from the fact that everyone's getting more sick. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just creating more and more lifelong customers. You are so courageous. Like, you are seriously my hero right now. Like, everyone is going nuts here, loving everything you're saying. And I want to just touch on quickly what you said about fatty liver, and how you said obesity is a symptom that you can see. And just because someone isn't overweight or fat doesn't mean they're not sick inside. So I have a really good friend, and he talks about this. He's very open about it. His name is Cody Crowley. He's a champion boxer. He's number 6 in the world in the welterweight division and undefeated. And he, at 24 years old, he was winning every fight, looked totally jacked. Like, the guy looks amazing. But he was eating horrible foods, unhealthy supplements with bad ingredients, but he was performing, he was winning. But he was getting really sick on the inside, and he was diagnosed with fatty liver. You would not look at this guy, he didn't drink, wasn't from alcohol, was non-alcoholic fatty liver. So that's an example of exactly what you were just talking about. It's about the metabolic health. It's about the health of our cells. And, Dave Sandoval always says, how much do you love your future self? Because our cells are made of what we're putting in our body, of the food that we eat.
Yeah. And I think shamefully we have, medical institutions. I mean, that's one example, like for the kids, obese kids, you'd hope that the American Academy of Pediatrics, which credentials pediatricians, and gives, parents literally the book on how to care for children, would be speaking out about this, or speaking out about these interconnectivities, speaking out about the fact that obesity is a symptom. It is not the problem itself. It's a symptom. It's a warning sign. But no, I mean, they're completely in the pocket of the makers of Ozempic and other drug companies. It's right on the site. The website has the list of all their funders, and its vast majority is pharma. It's all about innovation. It's all about interventions. And these poor children, there's just dollar signs on their head. And I think that's something I've been inspired by your content, by many other leaders in this space talking about metabolic health. The awakening and the revolution comes when we realize that the medical system really does not deserve, everyone says, well, consult your doctor, they give that disclaimer. I'll just say it. We should not be knee-jerk consulting our doctor when it comes to preventing chronic conditions, when it comes to preventing obesity, preventing diabetes, preventing heart disease, preventing depression. The medical system, show me any evidence that they deserve trust or benefit of the doubt. That is an empowering message, right? We as patients need to understand that disease is connected. that it's highly tied to food, that even, a professional athlete, like you mentioned, if they're not eating correctly, if they're not practicing good metabolic
Yeah.
habits, you don't need to be a drug addict or, as you said, like drinking, or it's foundationally food and, other metabolic habits that our grandma talked about, like movement and stress management and sleep. That's the basis of health. And we're trying to just be gaslighted out of that. So to me, it's like empowering. Like, I think a lot of people are waking up, a lot of people are asking questions, a lot of people are getting more down to basics. And I'm actually optimistic. I think the system actually has to change eventually more towards this, more unified direction, because we're just going to go bankrupt and just become too sick and depressed as a society to be competitive. We're literally going bankrupt with this, intervention-based medicine. And the math demands that we need to change eventually. And the only way we can bend this curve and get back on track is not drugging away at the problem, but getting back to food. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Calley, I know you have got to go because
No problem.
I just dropped my phone. Sorry. You have a big podcast you're jumping on and you need a little cushion in between this and that. But I just want to thank you so much. Everybody here loves everything you said. And I am so appreciative and grateful for you spending a little bit of your time with us today, and for getting this out there and having the courage to do it and really helping to open people's eyes, because this is what people need to know. People need to be educated and have this awareness of what's going on.
Well, it's an honor to bring my perspective again, just not from the medical side, but just seeing unimpressive, mostly white males rigging the system, which is kind of unsettling. And I think our system is, really slanted against us. It's honestly, I hope it's somewhat empowering to bring that message out, because we should be thinking for ourselves. And, I've just been inspired by you and so many other, folks who have been much longer in this space talking about metabolic health and the connections, between disease. I think it's the most important issue we need to get right. And it's a real honor to be a small foot soldier in this fight. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And keep fighting the good fight. And maybe you'll come on again sometime in the future, because like everybody here just could not get enough of hearing you, everything you said.
Well, thank you so much.
So powerful.
It's an honor to join, and we'll be in close touch. Bye.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Calley.